In the streets of South Auckland, a black and yellow symbol became one of the most feared gang identities in New Zealand. For decades, the Killer Beez have been linked to violence, organized crime, and some of the country's most notorious gang rivalries. Their name has appeared in newspaper headlines, police investigations, and discussions about the future of crime in New Zealand. But how did a small street gang grow into one of the country's most recognizable criminal organizations? To answer that question, we need to go back to the 1970s, when a group of young men in South Auckland began building what would eventually become one of New Zealand's most infamous gangs. The story of the Killer Beez begins during a period of major social change in New Zealand. Throughout the 1960s and 1970s, Auckland expanded rapidly as people moved into the city seeking employment and opportunity. South Auckland, in particular, experienced significant population growth, with many Maori and Pacifica families settling in the area. While countless families built successful lives and thriving communities, others faced challenges including unemployment, poverty, overcrowded housing, and limited opportunities. It was within this environment that gangs began to emerge and expand, offering some young people a sense of identity, belonging, and protection that they struggled to find elsewhere. The Killer Beez were founded in South Auckland during the 1970s. Unlike some other gangs that began as motorcycle clubs or evolved from prison groups, the Killer Beez emerged primarily as a street gang. Their membership was largely drawn from local communities, and they quickly established an identity built around loyalty, reputation, and unity. The gang adopted the bee as its symbol and black and yellow as its colors. The symbolism was simple but effective. One bee may seem insignificant, but a swarm can be dangerous. This concept became central to the gang's identity and remains one of its most recognizable features to this day. As the 1970s gave way to the 1980s, the Killer Beez began growing their influence throughout South Auckland. Membership increased as younger individuals were attracted by the gang's reputation and the sense of belonging it offered. The gang became increasingly visible in local communities, and their colors became a recognizable sight. At the same time, New Zealand's gang environment was becoming more competitive. Other organizations, such as the Mongrel Mob and Black Power, were expanding their own influence, leading to a criminal landscape where gangs competed for territory, reputation, and power. For gangs, reputation is often one of their most valuable assets. Fear can be a powerful tool, and gangs frequently rely on their reputation to maintain influence. The Killer Beez understood this well. Displays of unity, gang colors, symbols, tattoos, and public gatherings all contributed to building an image of strength. Maintaining that reputation became a priority, and challenges to the gang's status were often taken seriously. This culture helped reinforce loyalty among members, while also contributing to tensions with rival groups. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, the Killer Beez became increasingly established within Auckland's gang landscape. Their name spread beyond South Auckland, and they gained recognition throughout other parts of New Zealand. While the gang remained heavily associated with Auckland, their influence was no longer confined to a single area. Recruitment continued, new members joined, and the organization expanded its reach. One of the key reasons gangs, such as the Killer Beez, have endured for so long is their ability to provide members with a sense of identity. For many recruits, gang membership offers friendship, protection, and status. While these factors do not excuse criminal behavior, they help explain why gangs continue to attract members despite the risks involved. In some cases, gang membership becomes a family tradition, with younger generations following paths established by older relatives or community figures. This ability to recruit new members has allowed gangs to survive even as leaders are arrested, imprisoned, or retire from gang life. As the Killer Beez expanded, relationships with other gangs became increasingly important. Perhaps the most significant of these relationships was their connection with the Tribesman motorcycle club. The Tribesmen had already established themselves as a powerful gang within Auckland, and over time strong ties developed between the two groups. This alliance provided mutual support and increased influence within the criminal underworld. It also attracted greater attention from police and law enforcement agencies, who closely monitored gang activity throughout Auckland. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, New Zealand's criminal landscape was changing dramatically. One of the biggest factors driving this change was the rise of methamphetamine, commonly known as P. The drug quickly became one of the most profitable illegal substances in the country. Criminal organizations recognized the enormous financial opportunities involved in its distribution, and the illegal drug trade became a major source of income for gangs. Law enforcement agencies increasingly focused their attention on organized crime groups suspected of involvement in drug trafficking, money laundering, and other criminal enterprises. The rise of methamphetamine transformed gang activity throughout New Zealand. While violence and street-level crime had always played a role within gang culture, the potential profits associated with drug trafficking introduced a new dimension. Criminal enterprises became more sophisticated, and police argued that gangs were evolving into increasingly organized networks. The financial rewards involved were significant, creating fierce competition and increasing tensions between rival groups. One of the most well-known rivalries involving the Killer Beez has been their long-running conflict with the Mongrel Mob. The Mongrel Mob is New Zealand's largest gang, with chapters spread throughout the country. As both organizations expanded their influence, tensions occasionally developed between members. These disputes varied in nature, but often attracted public and media attention due to concerns about gang violence. Law enforcement agencies closely monitored situations involving rival gangs because of the potential risks to public safety. Gang rivalries can become self-perpetuating. One confrontation may lead to retaliation, which then triggers another response. Over time, these cycles can continue for years, with new generations inheriting conflicts that began long before they joined. The rivalry between the Killer Beez and the Mongrel Mob has often been cited as one example of how gang tensions can persist across decades. As concerns about gangs increased, so too did efforts by police to combat organized crime. Throughout the 2000s and 2010s, major law enforcement operations targeted gang members across New Zealand. Police employed surveillance, intelligence gathering, undercover investigations, and coordinated search warrants to disrupt criminal networks. Large-scale operations sometimes involved dozens or even hundreds of officers working together to execute raids and gather evidence. These operations often resulted in arrests and the seizure of drugs, cash, vehicles, and other assets believed to be connected to criminal offending. Police argued that targeting organized crime groups was necessary to reduce harm within communities. At the same time, gangs frequently adapted to law enforcement pressure. New leaders emerged when others were arrested, and criminal organizations often adjusted their methods to avoid detection. This ongoing struggle between gangs and law enforcement became one of the defining features of New Zealand's fight against organized crime. Media coverage played a major role in shaping public perceptions of the Killer Beez. News reports frequently covered gang-related incidents, police investigations, arrests, and criminal trials. For many New Zealanders, these reports formed their primary understanding of gang activity. The gang's black and yellow colors became instantly recognizable, and their name became associated with organized crime in the public imagination. However, discussions surrounding gangs have often extended beyond crime alone. Researchers, community leaders, and social organizations have frequently debated the factors that contribute to gang membership. Some argue that stronger law enforcement measures are the most effective solution, while others emphasize the importance of addressing social issues such as poverty, educational disadvantage, family instability, and limited employment opportunities. The reality is that gang membership is a complex issue influenced by many different factors. Today, the Killer Beez remain one of New Zealand's most recognizable gangs. Although gang structures continue to evolve and exact membership figures can be difficult to verify, the organization continues to maintain a presence within New Zealand's gang landscape. Police and government agencies continue monitoring gang activity, particularly in relation to organized crime and drug trafficking. Advances in technology, surveillance capabilities, and intelligence gathering have changed the way law enforcement investigates criminal organizations, but gangs have also adapted to these changing circumstances. Modern organized crime looks very different from the gang environment that existed when the Killer Bees first appeared during the 1970s. Criminal networks have become more complex, law enforcement methods have become more advanced, and society itself has undergone major changes. Yet many of the same themes remain. Questions of loyalty, identity, power, territory, and profit continue to shape gang behavior today just as they did decades ago. In recent years, New Zealand's approach to gangs entered a new chapter with the introduction of laws aimed at restricting the public display of gang insignia. In 2024, the government introduced legislation banning the public display of gang patches and gang insignia. Supporters argued that gang patches were used to intimidate communities and openly demonstrate gang influence, while critics questioned whether the ban would significantly reduce organized crime itself. Police were granted powers to direct individuals to remove gang insignia from public places and issue penalties if they refused. For organizations such as the Killer Bees, whose identity has long been tied to their black and yellow colors, symbols, and gang imagery, the patch ban represented one of the most direct attempts by the government to challenge gang visibility. The law sparked considerable debate throughout New Zealand and highlighted the ongoing struggle between authorities seeking to reduce gang influence and organizations determined to maintain their identity and presence. Whether the legislation will have a lasting impact remains uncertain, but it marked a significant moment in the history of gangs in New Zealand and demonstrated how the country's response to organized crime continues to evolve. The story of the Killer Bees is ultimately about more than a single gang. It is a story about how criminal organizations emerge, how they grow, and how they adapt over time. It reflects broader themes within New Zealand society, including urban development, social challenges, organized crime, and law enforcement responses. From their beginnings on the streets of South Auckland to becoming one of the country's most recognizable gang names, the Killer Bees have left a lasting mark on New Zealand's criminal history. Whether their influence grows, declines, or changes in the future remains uncertain. What is certain, however, is that their story continues to be intertwined with the larger story of gangs and organized crime in New Zealand. For decades, the black and yellow colors of the Killer Bees have been recognized across the country, symbolizing both the enduring presence of gang culture and the ongoing challenges faced by communities, police, and policymakers alike. As New Zealand continues to confront the issue of organized crime, the Killer Bees remains one of the most recognizable examples of how gangs can shape the history of a nation.
Came through flexing cause they know I got the sauce. Got the presence on me, I can't ever take it off. That's why I came country boy stepping, yeah, I'm country boy stepping. Country boy stepping, yeah, I'm country boy stepping. Yeah, they can't get like me, rockin' boots and white tee. Designer on my cuff, ain't something like a Moby. Country boy stepping.